Hey everybody, I'm Adrian Bustamante and welcome to Recipe Wars.
And I'm BC Hoffman, and on today's Recipe Wars, we are doing bread pudding.
Bread pudding. Today I'm doing Paula Deen and John Besch's recipe for bread pudding.
I'm in the kitchen today with John Besch. He's so cute. I'm actually fixing to make him a sweet potato bread pudding with a pecan crumble topping. And I have asked John to separate 6 eggs for me, and I'm gonna be making the custard. Now, the custard is gonna be 2 cups of milk. I'm gonna add a half a cup of white sugar. In goes a half a cup of brown sugar. So all total, we've got 1 cup. So we're just gonna mix that up. Now I've got a cup and a half, John, of pureed sweet potato.
Now it's a little bit different. We'll actually be using sweet potato puree in ours with the normal, brown and white sugar, eggs, and of course, bread. We're using white bread. So yours is a little bit different in regards, you have some better tasting bread, a more traditional way of doing it. So with this recipe, it's a little bit different that she's actually using pureed sweet potato along with white bread, which isn't completely weird. We have brown and white sugar, and then we're also doing a pecan crumble over the top of it, which should add a little bit of texture and some sweetness to it as well. But yours, on the other hand, I'm already a little jealous of because it looks pretty tasty.
So mine is actually Giada de Laurentiis, and she is actually doing a Italian variation of a Southern style traditional bread pudding.
The base of my bread custard is Italian panettone, a rich holiday bread that is studded with fruit and nuts. The warm bread pudding is drizzled with a buttery sweet sauce flavored with amaretto liqueur. Make it, you know you want it. All right, so now we're gonna make our bread pudding. And here is the special Italian ingredient I told you about. We're gonna use some panettone. And panettone is one of my favorite desserts. We have it at Christmas time, it's traditional, and it's an egg-rich cake. Let's get rid of the wrapping. There we go. And as you can see little raisins. It's studded with raisins and candied fruit. It's not too sweet, but just sweet enough. And it's gonna make for the perfect bread pudding. There we go. We'll get rid of all of the paper. I'm gonna cut my bread into approximately 1-inch cubes. That way they're bite-sized, and also if the cubes are too big, you can have dry spots in the bread pudding. Now, you could add whatever you want to this. Personally, I would add some chocolate chips, but I'm trying to keep it Southern, so I'm just gonna stick to the raisins and the candied fruit that's in here.
So I'm gonna actually take the panettone bread, which is basically, it's a holiday bread, it's an Italian bread. It's sweeter, definitely more during like Christmas time you get this. It's a sweet bread, it usually has figs and raisins in it, and it's not overly sweet, so it's perfect for bread pudding, and it's got a slight dryness to it. It's just a great mesh. And we're gonna use that, we're gonna use our heavy cream, our milk, sugar, eggs, and then what she does is instead of doing like a traditional bourbon creme sauce, creme anglaise, she's actually doing a take on it with amaretto, which is really, really, really nice. And I love the way that it's delicious. So I'm excited to get this recipe war started.
I'm excited too.
I think that the Southern Italian is gonna overcome the sweet potato. And here's the thing, I can't hate because bread pudding is, you can get as creative with it as you can get. I mean,
let's be honest, bread pudding started with bread, sugar, milk in a pot, back when it first began. So I mean, there's gonna be a million different variations to this, as we progress into the modern century.
And just a little side note on history is bread pudding was something created by penny pinching chefs in the early days. Yeah. They wanted to use every little bit of bread that they could use. So they would use the leftover stale, day-old bread and make a pudding out of it. Yeah. And that is the poor man's pudding. So I'm gonna take my wonderful and delicious heavy cream. I've got a half cup of heavy cream, a half cup of milk. I'm gonna throw those in there. And then I've got 3 tablespoons of sugar. I'm gonna dump right in there. I'm just gonna get that nice and hot. So I'm just gonna mix the cornstarch and the amaretto together separately, just room temperature cold, because you don't wanna add to the heat. It's gonna get clumpy and it'll actually start thickening as soon as you incorporate it into the heat pretty much. Both of our bread puddings actually go to the oven today. And we're gonna also butter our pan. So make sure that's buttered and then you're ready to go.
Yeah, I'm starting with pretty much what I would consider to be the base of my bread pudding. So I'm gonna start with a little saucepan and I'm gonna add first my sweet potato puree, which all we did here was we just roasted some sweet potatoes, cut it, squeezed them out, and pureed them into a little bit of a food processor. So it's really simple to do. I'm curious, like I said, with the sweet potatoes, I really am a big fan of sweet potatoes, so I like the sweetness to it, so we'll see what happens. I'm actually gonna be using 2 cups of whole milk as well, and then throwing some nutmeg and some cinnamon in here. And nutmeg, so a little goes a long way. We're using a half a cup of granulated sugar and then a half a cup of brown sugar as well. So you can mix them like we are. You can use one all the way, or use all brown sugar if you want as well. Whatever you like. Now I'm gonna slowly incorporate my brown sugar just because I'm gonna let it kind of do its thing. I don't want too many clumps, or I want to try and have it melt as much as possible. You can throw it all in if you like, but this is how I'm gonna do it.
So my milk, my cream, my sugar, they actually came to almost over boiling beyond a pot. Threw it off real quick. Added in my amaretto and cornstarch mixture, slurry, as you would call it. And now I'm just gonna basically let that thicken, put on a simmer basically and let it thicken.
Yeah. Now, I know she touched on it a little bit, and when I've done bread pudding before in the past, I've actually used stuff like, I like to use half and half. It's usually got a fairly decent high percentage of fat, around like 18 to 20% or so. But now you use, in yours, you're using whole milk?
Whole milk and heavy cream. Yeah. Don't go light on this stuff. No. Don't get fat-free, don't get skim. This is bread pudding. It's comfort food 101. Be as unhealthy as possible. You're already putting in sugar, you're already putting in bread. I mean, what's it gonna hurt to put in whole milk? You want the fattiness, you want that nice, creamy, delicious, sugary binder.
Yeah. And that's why, that's exactly. You want that fat to come out because that's gonna add that flavor to it. And that's why I use half and half in mine, but whole milk's gonna work just as well because it's got a high percentage of fat too. I'm gonna let this mixture come to a boil, and while it's doing that, I'm gonna butter my pan as well.
And viewers at home, just so you're wondering, once it can actually kind of just coat the back of a wooden spoon, that's when this is ready. So we're just gonna literally let this, I don't know if you can see it right there, it's gotten a lot thicker. You can totally thicken it even more if you really want to, but that's about the consistency I want. I don't want it too thick, I want it to still drizzle right on top. So I'm just gonna let this sit right over here and use it for later. And in the meantime, I'm ready to move on.
Oh, yeah.
So you want it to be soft enough to absorb the actual flavor, but substantial enough to actually mix together and keep its consistency. That being said, I'm ready to throw my cream and my milk and my sugar right in here. So I've got the 8 eggs. I've got 1.5 cups of cream, 2.5 cups of milk, and then got a nice heaping of sugar that I'm gonna throw in there, and that is 1.25 cups of sugar. This is a pudding. You want it sweet. You want it to be just tasty and delicious. Don't hold back on sugar. It's pudding, it's dessert. Yes, you can do a savory bread pudding as well. That's not what we're going for here.
So what I'll be doing is I'll be adding my mixture to the egg yolks very slowly in regards to, so it's called tempering. So we want to add the hot mixture slowly to the egg yolks. Reason being is we want not to have scrambled eggs when the mixture is done mixing together. So that is there, egg yolks here, and we start to whisk.
Whisk away. I'm gonna beat you at beating.
And I'm done. It won't take very long to actually obviously whisk these egg yolks together, but it is going to take a minute for this mixture to kind of cool down enough for me to feel comfortable to slowly incorporate it. What I'm going to do is I'm not going to take this whole pan and dump it in the bowl. I'm going to probably take maybe 1/4 of it to about 1/2 of this mixture right here, slowly incorporate it to this while whisking, and then I will take all of this, pour it back in the pan, and then we'll move on from there.
So I'm gonna take my custard, I'm gonna put it over my bread and I'm gonna let it sit for about 30 minutes, pressing down just slightly enough to make sure that everything's saturated and soaked fully. And then I'm ready to go into the oven. It's a quick, simple process, and then it takes about 45 minutes in a 350-degree oven to get this bad boy going.
I have a feeling I'm gonna really like this recipe. It reminds me, my grandma used to make bread pudding, but she used Mexican bread. And Mexican bread is very similar to this bread in regards to the sweetness. It's a lightly sweetened bread. Well, some of it is. There's a good portion of it they use a lot of sugar on it too, but the ones that we like to eat and she made the bread pudding out of are very close to the way this bread tastes. So I'm actually excited for your recipe, but I'm also excited for this one too.
Sounds like you already considered mine the winner.
All right, let's see how this mixture is doing over here.
So, I mean, you know what? I'm using a spoon, but why am I using a spoon? Come on.
Why using a spoon?
Why am I using a spoon?
That's not like
you. Get your
you.
hands in there, get it nice
Watch
and
your arm, sir.
completely coated, and block your opponent's cooking method so that way he can't win whatsoever.
I was just more worried about burning your arm.
Oh, yeah, burns.
All right, and this is what I was talking about, just slowly incorporating this mixture while whisking. That should be enough right there. Keep whisking, keep it moving. And then I'll add a little bit more here in a second. And once I'm done whisking that little extra, we will take this bowl and place it in this pan.
So I'm actually ready to go in the oven after it sets for 30 minutes. I'm super excited. And again, bread pudding is only gonna lack whatever your imagination is lacking. You can put anything you want in there. You can use day-old bread, you can use fresh bread, which these recipes called for, but it's not necessary. Use day-old bread, use bread that's older. You're sitting it in a custard, you're letting that custard soak up and absorb all the flavor. You know, I mean, I'm sure I'm gonna have pastry chefs coming back and commenting, no, it has to be fresh bread.
This is where it came from. It came from using ingredients that were, you know,
Go back to
in the
11th
Bible.
and 12th century
Yeah.
history. There's a reason why I'm taking the traditional and saying go with the older bread.
Yeah.
Just let it soak longer. That's the only thing.
So I'm adding this mixture back into my pot again. And I'm gonna whisk this. Now I'm gonna turn the heat up to pretty much high. And what I'm waiting for is similar to what happened to his right away. I'm waiting for a thick custard-like substance to happen. So I'll just heat this on high, keep whisking, and once it's done, we're gonna take my bread and we're gonna start mixing this all together. All right, my custard is looking like it's ready, so it's
Looks
time.
like sweet potato pie.
It does look like sweet potato pie. That's the first thing I thought of. It is, and it is sweet. I mean, that is a sweet custard. All right, let's bring this over here. All right, so we're just gonna take some white bread. Now, the way Paula Deen did it was she did like a little layer first, and then placed the custard in and did another layer, and then more custard as well. So we're gonna do it that way. Just we're using cubes per her recipe as opposed to the whole pieces
slice.
of white bread.
You just gotta take
You've
a
done
piece
before.
of bread and put it on the bottom. You gotta take an entire loaf and put it on the bottom of your pan.
And I feel like that kind of takes away from what people really expect from bread pudding, you know?
It's gonna be like the lasagna of bread pudding.
Yes, so
Each layer of toast is gonna be your sheet of pasta.
there we go. There's the one layer that we talked about. Now, it's white bread. I mean, just like any bread, it's gonna soak up pretty well. So I'm kind of doing the same thing as BC did. I don't wanna press too hard. This is just off the burner, so I don't really put my hand in it either. So we'll do it this way.
And you can use any variation of bread. I know a lot of chefs actually like taking like cinnamon raisin bread and
Oh,
taking
yeah.
old Danishes and incorporating all those together. I find that pumpernickel and multigrains tend to be a lot more dense
Pumpernickel.
and aren't usually the best for bread puddings. Stuffings, yes. Bread puddings, not so much.
I would go with Mexican bread.
Panettone. Panettone.
Panettone.
And challah.
Holla!
Holla at me.
There we go. A little more of this. All right. Paula Deen, I hope she's happy. So I am gonna let this sit for a little bit, and while it's sitting, I'm gonna start on my pecan crumble. We'll just sit it over here.
Yes.
So we're making a pecan pie crumble. It's pretty simple. We're using some flour, stick of butter. Weird, stick of butter.
Paula Deen with a
Deen.
stick of butter? No.
That is very, very unlike her. Brown sugar.
I love that yours has a crust, especially since it's a
Pecans.
sweet potato bread pudding as opposed to like, so it's almost like going to like a sweet potato pie tradition.
It is almost like a crumble. It is almost like a sweet potato pie crumble,
Yeah.
per se. And then we're using some oats. So this is going to add a lot of texture, obviously, when you bite into it. Should be a nice, sweet, crust to the top.
And it's gonna be heartier.
And it is going to be heartier. This is going to be a very hearty dish.
Bread pudding with a hearty, crusty texture.
Yeah.
Here on Recipe Wars, we don't hold anything back. We're jumping over the bar.
Yeah. If you have an aversion for some reason to using your hands, you can use a hand mixer with this.
Hands are the #1 tool in the kitchen for a reason, guys.
Yeah. So make sure you get this all mixed well together. You want to get butter over everything. You want to make sure that flour is well mixed in there, but it shouldn't take very long. You can let this sit aside for a while that is sitting as well, but once it's done, we're gonna place this over the top of it. I'm gonna pop this bad boy in the oven.
Best way to do this is 8 hours or overnight it in the fridge. Well, we are now ready to taste our bread pudding.
Ready.
I'm excited.
Ready for this.
Woo! So let us start. Let's go with Paula Deen first on this
Go
bad
Paula
boy.
Deen? All right,
A
let's
little
do it.
Paula Deen action.
This reminds me a lot, just looking at it visually, as a sweet potato pie.
It's sweet potato cobbler,
Yeah,
100%.
100% sweet potato cobbler with some bread inside.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's get a bite.
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a sweet potato pie. It's bread pudding. It actually kind of tastes like it tastes like sweet potato pie. It actually kind of reminds me of a Mexican drink called manzana.
Yeah.
And it's funny because the bread, I really like the fact that you cubed it. That was a good idea instead of doing like the whole slices that she uses in the video. Definitely cube it if you're making it at home. It absorbs the moisture that much better.
Yeah.
And it's almost like, you said, it was almost like apples.
Well, that's what I was about to say, is like, if you even look at it, when I cut into it, I was like, because of the bread soaked in all the juice and flavor, it's almost glistening. So it glistens like an apple would and like a pie. So when I'm looking at it and I bite into it, I'm immediately thinking apple. When I bite into it, I'm like, that's not apple, that's bread. It's really, really good. It doesn't really remind me that much of bread pudding, but it does remind me of a really good sweet potato cobbler. And what I would probably do, this is giving me a great idea, is I would probably make this again, but put apples inside of it and make it exactly what I want right now.
Exactly.
All right.
Otherwise, that's gonna be gone. We aren't even gonna take time to try this one. We're just gonna eat the entire tasting.
Yeah, we're just gonna eat the whole pudding. All right.
Okay. So,
I'm just gonna dig it.
let's go in. This is Giada's Italian flared panettone bread pudding with amaretto sauce.
That was what I wanted. That's the bread pudding. The panettone. The sweetness from that bread just shoots through. You get the raisins.
The alcohol, boozy goodness right here. This
Yeah.
is just awesome. The drizzle takes on just, it's so good.
I mean, this is a bread. When you want a bread pudding, this is a bread pudding. Look at it right here. Oh, this is a good piece.
yeah, I mean, it's soft, it's moist, it's got alcohol in it.
I mean, this is good. Hey, I tell you what, you want a good pie? You come here. You want some bread pudding? You come here.
Yeah, that no hesitation, no doubt. Giada de Laurentiis totally is the winner right here.
Yeah, she did a wonderful job in regards to putting all this stuff together.
So you viewers at home, we are having a t-shirt design contest here for Recipe Wars. So if you come up with a creative design for a Recipe War t-shirt, anything dealing with food, please send it to us at recipewars@gmail.com and I will choose my favorite. Doesn't take much to please me besides maybe a little bacon and alcohol in my bread pudding. And I will not only wear your design t-shirt, but we will send you a t-shirt with your design on it. That's right, so please send it to recipewars@gmail.com. My name is BC Hoffman.
And I'm Adrian Bustamante.
This has been Recipe Wars. Please subscribe to our channel, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter. You keep watching, we'll keep cooking.